Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick, and we got Harrison tonight. How are we doing, bud?
Good. How we doing, Nick?
Not too bad, not too bad. Sean might pop on later. We don't know. He's got family stuff going on, so that's obviously, priority. 1A, 1B, family.
Yeah, right.
And then
Obviously.
So, yeah. So before we get going, make sure you go on Facebook and like, share, comment. You can also go on YouTube and subscribe. We're still trying to get on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. So hang with us while we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, follow us along wherever you can.
Yeah, and don't forget we're now also streaming on Twitch if that's your thing too.
That's right. All right. So latest hot stove. It's not really a hot stove item, but Scott Rowland makes it to the Hall of Fame. Todd Helton missed it by 3% of the vote. So one writer didn't vote for him, and that was the difference. So, I mean, we kind of figured Scott Rowland was going to be in. Looking at the percentages last week, he was just due to get 75% of the vote because he was at, 65, 68, something like that.
Yeah, he was already creeping up on it. And really, he belongs there. When you look at his stats, I mean, he's easily top 4 or 5 third baseman of all time. He belongs there.
Yeah, his defensive highlight reel is disgusting.
Yeah, so the writers got that one right. I feel like Todd Helton probably deserves to be there. Like we talked about last week, he's kind of a bubble guy. He probably deserves to be there, but he doesn't have like a super compelling case. He's got a good case. But I think people still hold Coors Field against him, and it's not right because the splits, he was exceptional on the road. It wasn't like he was a Coors Field hitter.
Yeah. I mean, as much as Coors Field adds, gives the hitters a benefit, like they also did build a bigger park. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like because the ball travels, down the lines is like 340. Like that's a tank down the lines.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's not a cheap home run. It's not like you're hitting pop flies that are carrying out. Like you've still got to hit the ball a good ways.
Right. And we still let Yankees in when their fence is 300. So I mean,
Fenway Park, you go down and hit pesky pole, you're at 302. I mean, I think the fields we played on in high school and Legion ball were bigger than that. So
right. So I mean, the park shouldn't matter. I mean, like you said, his road splits were still good.
Yep.
And I think he deserves to be in. He should have been in with this class with McGriff and Rowland for sure.
Yep. But although I got to say, those two guys going in this year, they knew how to use a glove.
Yeah.
Those were super defenders.
I mean, Todd Helton wasn't a slouch. He was decent at first. He was pretty good too, but you're right.
But I mean, Fred McGriff made videos. He was so good. He and Tom Amansky taught us how to play defense.
That's right. Goodness. All right. The Red Sox trade for Adalberto Mondesi in exchange for Josh Taylor. So we send a relief pitcher for some shortstop depth. A lot of people are like, who? And it's like, okay, Mondesi is Raul Mondesi's son, which doesn't make any difference to me, but I miss Raul Mondesi playing. But he's got a great glove, and he's got a ton of speed. This guy can motor.
Yep.
I think it's a depth play up the middle. You can push Arroyo to the outfield. You can move some pieces around where he's not necessarily going to be the everyday shortstop, I think, in Boston, but you're going to see him there quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think I mean, and the argument most people have is, well, Josh Taylor was a serviceable bullpen arm. Yeah, he was. He was a serviceable, middle of the bullpen kind of guy. But I hate to say it, but those guys are everywhere. There's tons of guys that can be serviceable, middle of the bullpen guys. So it's not like you gave up a blue chip prospect or a stud lockdown guy. You gave up another kind of middle of the bullpen guy, which certainly they need. But in Mondesi, you're getting a guy with super raw talent, with a high ceiling, the baseball pedigree being Raul Mondesi's kid. And with Trevor Story out, the Red Sox are going to do almost what the Patriots used to always do. They're going to pile in a bunch of guys into spring training and pick the best ones and roll with that team. And, this kid offers a completely different player and look than the Red Sox have had. So
yeah,
I don't have a problem with it. I applaud the aggressiveness of the move to try to mix it up. I don't hate what Chaim Bloom is doing as much as I used to. I think I see what he's trying to accomplish. And a guy like Mondesi is a good piece.
Yeah, I think I was all over Bloom at the beginning of this offseason too. Like maybe even in December, I'm like, what on earth are we doing? And then he kind of came out and kind of explained like what he's doing, and I'm on board. Like the pieces that he has put in Boston aren't necessarily sexy picks, right?
No.
Jorge Alfaro, Kenley Jansen. Yeah, he's a nice closer, but he's 38.
Right.
Mondesi. We got another relief pitcher in there, anyways. But
It was a whole bunch. It's somebody else just today. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah. So I mean, these moves are not going to blow you away. They're not Carlos Correa. They're not Dansby Swanson. Those guys aren't going to come in, and they're not for the next few years. They're going to keep building these pieces that fit the team. And when Trevor Story went out, Bloom was like, okay, crap. Now I got to go out and get a depth piece at short, because ultimately I think he wants to keep Kike in center. I don't think he wants to move Kike out of center. And Mondesi gives you that shortstop up the middle. If Kike has to come in and play short, he can.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think that, I mean, adding Duvall certainly gives them some options in the outfield.
Yep.
And I don't think they're going to be like, hey, Mondesi, shortstop is yours. It's going to be more like, hey, you're going to move around, you're going to find a home. If you show us in spring training you've got something, you'll get worked in. But I think they need the ability to bring Kike into shortstop for maybe a game or two, but put him in the outfield the majority of the time and give guys rest and mix things up and be able to play with that lineup. So Cora's got some options, and he's not pinned into like last year. He literally had one lineup that he could run, that he could rely upon. They need to be able to be a little more interchangeable this year, and I think a guy like Mondesi gives them the depth to maybe do that.
And if you have Yoshida at the top and Mondesi at the top, those guys can motor. I mean, we haven't seen Yoshida yet, but he's supposedly an on-base machine. You get those two guys in front of Devers, and listen, Adam Duvall is not a slouch. The guy's gonna put up 25, 85, 90. I mean, his RBI totals are probably going to be low because Devers is in front of him. However, with the monster, I wouldn't be surprised if Duvall hits 25 plus this year.
Oh yeah,
if he stays healthy.
I mean, in 2021, he was in Miami. He split time between Miami and Atlanta. He hit 38 and drove in 113.
Yeah.
He hit 30 home runs twice when he was in Cincinnati. He hit. Let's see. He only, he missed a lot of the year last year. He still hit 12. He's going to be a guy that he's going to get on hot streaks, and he's going to hit a bunch. He's going to remind you a lot of Hunter Renfroe. He's going to play good defense. He's going to hit home runs. He's not going to blow you away, but he's going to go out there and he's going to make some noise. And in many ways, Duvall is almost the replacement for Renfroe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately the sleeper signing for the Red Sox is Alfaro. And, if you don't get the offensive production out of McGuire that they're thinking they're going to, I think Alfaro has a chance to come in this lineup and make a big impact. Something we haven't seen in a while, out of the catcher spot anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. When he's played over 100 games, he puts up some pretty nice numbers. In Philadelphia, he hit 10. In Miami, he hit 18 home runs, drove in 57, hit 262 over 130 games. He's a guy that is he's going to run into some.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be exciting to see. I mean, I still don't think they're out of the basement. I mean, we're going to see if the Orioles was a fluke. Are they here to stay? Like we're going to see that pan out. And like I commented on a couple of threads too, is like people that put in the Red Sox second. I'm like, listen, I'm trying to be realistic here. I don't think they're a second place team. However, with this balanced schedule, we really have no idea how it's going to pan out. Right? I mean, we keep saying that back and forth. We're like, is it going to be easy to make up ground? Is it more important to come out hot, and keep that lead like the Yankees did last year? They were so hot so early that is it going to be impossible for the AL East to catch whoever, gets on a tear the first 3 months? We just don't know how this balanced schedule is going to look, how it's going to work, and if you can make up ground,
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I see what Bloom is doing. He's doing something very similar with what the Patriots have always done. They're going to go find all those guys in the middle of the pack that are going to come in and fight for a position and fight to keep it. Pile them into spring training. See who's the best. and build the best team they can out of the parts they have. But the other pitcher I mentioned, that was Richard Blyer. That was in the Matt Barnes trade. They DFA'd Barnes, and then they traded him today to the Marlins for Richard Blyer. Another, you can't rely on Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes is done. He needs to go somewhere else and start over.
Agree.
So getting something for him, I think, is a win. And
Yeah.
Blyer's a very serviceable middle of the bullpen guy. So you give up Josh Taylor, you pick up Blyer for Barnes, who's a guy that in many cases we all thought was, just going to walk away.
Yeah. So Scott, kind of going back to the Hall of Fame stuff real quick, Scott commented and says, is Jeff Kent a top 3 second baseman of all time? Of all time, I don't know if he's top 3, but he is the only second baseman to record 6 straight 100 RBI seasons. I do know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, top 3 of all time. I mean, you got Ryan Sandberg, Rod Carew, Joe Morgan off the top of my head. I don't think Jeff Kent leaps any of those 3.
No, I mean, yeah, I think Jeff Kent was a hell of a player, but I think in the grand scheme of things overall, I mean, he's going to fall. But you think of all the second basemen ever, Joe Morgan's a great one. You got Rogers Hornsby, Jackie Robinson's technically a second baseman.
Right.
Rod Carew, if you call him a second baseman. Roberto Alomar.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many guys, Ryan Sandberg, as you mentioned, that would definitely fall ahead of him.
Yeah. Offensively, he might be towards the top there. But
yeah, he's terrible defensively. God, he was awful.
Yeah.
He was awful. Hands of stone.
Right.
Craig Biggio. I mean, I'm struggling to see how he may not even be top 10 when you break it down.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, offensively, he's definitely up there. Yeah. But as an all-around package, I'd take probably 10 other guys ahead.
I got a lot of guys I'd take before him.
Absolutely. So the Mets extend Jeff McNeil. I don't have the numbers on that, but they extended him for 5 years.
4 years, $50 million. So $12.5 million a year, which the first thing I said when that came out was, does that seem cheap or is it just me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a deal for the Mets and Jeff McNeil. I mean, to get him for 12, that dude's legit. And you got him for $12 million a year for the next 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's I looked at that number and I went, that I'm missing something because that seems really cheap.
Yeah. I don't know how many service years he has, but does that get him to free agency, those 4 years? That sounds about right.
Maybe. This may be one of those sign it early kind of deals.
Yeah, just to get him to free agency.
Yeah, I mean, this is that he just finished his 5th year. So yeah, he would be in that bucket. But the problem is he came up at 26. He's 30.
So yeah.
So he came up a little later. And really, I mean, he's always hit for a high average. And when he started playing every day, that's when you started to see the numbers ramp up.
Yeah, that Mets team is going to be pretty ridiculous, though. Watching an all-star team every night, it's crazy.
They're loaded. I mean, they're loaded. The Padres are loaded. I think a lot of other teams have made some good moves, but boy, that team is stacked.
Yeah. And then Zach Greinke re-signs with the Royals for his 85th Major League season.
Moving on.
Yep. Okay.
I can't believe he's still in the league. That's really all I can say.
I mean, his fastball can't even break a pane of glass at this point. I mean,
no, and
he's still getting people out somehow. Whatever.
He is.
I guess
it's because it's the change of speed and the breaking stuff. The fastball's been gone for years.
Yeah.
But he still throws some nasty breaking stuff, and I will give the guy credit. Although he had all kinds of kind of weird mental type things early in his career, not being able to handle the stress and the pressure. He's a grinder. Like the guy goes out there and battles.
Absolutely. Crazy. All right, we're going to move on to the 5th inning where we are going to discuss our
Scott. Yes, Mike Trout made it to playoffs as a fan.
Yes, I posted that too. He's been to more Eagles playoff games than he has actual playoff games.
Mike Trout made it to playoffs as a fan, as a football fan.
Goodness gracious, it's brutal. Yeah. All right. Best 3 pitchers to throw a slider. We put this out to everybody, and they said, well, you give your 3 first while I'm pulling it up.
Sure. So I actually had a tough time picking three because there's a lot of really good slider pitchers that I saw, but um, the three I had, Bob Gibson, he threw a nasty slider. That was his out pitch for most of his career. So Gibson for me, followed by John Smoltz. Smoltz had that nasty slider that just disappeared, and that was always his go-to strikeout pitch. In his career, opposing batters hit less than 200 on it for his entire career, but slider for Smoltz was nasty. And then lastly for me was Dennis Eckersley. He had that weird sidearm 3/4. I think at one point he called it like a monkey curve or something silly, but really it was a slider. The thing broke like crazy. He threw it a ton. Nobody could hit it. You knew it was coming. You couldn't hit it.
Yeah.
So I always enjoyed his slider because it did move so much, and you no matter what you did, you just couldn't seem to get in front of it. But and then my honorable mention was Michael King of the Yankees this year. I've never seen a slider that was thrown so hard and so tightly that thing just disappears.
Yeah. Crazy.
Also, probably why I needed Tommy John surgery, but that's beside the point.
Right. I mean, Dennis Eckersley's slider was almost like a 12-6 curve coming from like.
Oh, it was weird. It was crazy.
Like yeah, it's insane.
It was like the backyard wiffle ball slider. Like it just kept breaking, and you go to swing for it, and it just kept breaking.
Yeah, it's crazy. My best three are all from the left side, which is interesting. But Chris Sale, for the same reason that Eckersley had his, but when his slider is on, that back foot slider is just no one can touch it. Steve Carlton, the same, and Randy Johnson. I mean, Randy Johnson.
The takeout slider.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
just all three from the left side that just breaks in on righties and they can't do anything about it.
Well, and for the funny thing with Randy Johnson is that you'd even see lefties bail on it because they thought it was going to be 100-mile-per-hour heat at their head until it dove away from him. I mean, he was nasty to both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Viewers, Nick Fanning said Randy Johnson, Steve Carlton, and then Jacob deGrom. Harrison and I talked about deGrom.
Yeah.
I mean, his slider's at 93 miles an hour. Dude.
It's nasty.
One's touching that. It's
nasty.
And then Jim Britt said Smoltz, deGrom, and K-Rod. So
yeah, K-Rod had a good one. He's somebody that I had looked at and thought about. I just don't like him.
Yep. And then honorable mention, both Nick Fanning and Jim Britt said CC Sabathia.
CC's was good.
Yep. So I mean, that's honorable mention to both of them. So that was somebody I didn't even think about, but CC in his prime was pretty untouchable.
Yeah, and one guy we already talked about during the show was Greinke. Greinke also has a nasty wipeout slider.
Yeah, or curve, however fast. I don't know if there has to be a speed limit to the pitch, but
yeah, good point. Because
I don't know.
Because for a while there, everybody was in love with the slurve that was like that 3/4 curveball slider that it broke diagonally versus straight down or right across.
Right, the slurve.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Crazy. All right, we are motoring along here tonight. We're gonna move on to seventh inning stretch where we had our all-time teams, and now we're in the NL Central. Next week we'll be in the NL West. I'll start with the Cincinnati Reds. Catcher Johnny Bench, first base Joey Votto, second base Joe Morgan, shortstop Barry Larkin, third base Chris Sabo with his goggles, left field Pete Rose. Yeah. Pete Rose in left, Eric Davis in center, Frank Robinson in right, Ken Griffey Sr. is my DH.
Yep.
And then I went with Johnny Cueto as my starter. And then Rob Dibble as my relief pitcher.
I loved Dibble. God, I loved that guy.
Yeah.
He was so entertaining.
Yeah. There was a lot of like old. I mean, Cincinnati Reds are the oldest ball team organization in MLB. So like, I'm sure there's like Three Finger Tug or, like Steamboat Willie or like, like there's those guys like back in the early 1900s that put up numbers.
I don't think Three Finger Tug was a baseball player, Nick.
I don't know. Whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Like all those guys with those funky nicknames back in the 1902 season. I couldn't go with any of those. I did juggle with Johnny Vandermeer, who was the only pitcher to throw back-to-back no-hitters.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just went Johnny Cueto because, I mean, he was in Cincinnati for so long and was dominant there. So I went there instead. So
Yeah. The only thing with the Reds, which is funny, is that other than the big red machine years, like they weren't good. Like
no.
they had a lot of really terrible years. And I look at the team now and you got, other than Joey Votto, there's no reason, I guess, and Jonathan India, there's no reason to watch that team play. They've just
Right.
been so bad for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tough to watch for sure. But Matt, we're actually going to get to that and at the end here. Who's the cover of the show? You can't see behind Harrison's head, but
I'm actually on the cover of the show. You didn't hear that?
Yeah, definitely Harrison's arms coming out of the side of his head there.
Yep.
No, it's Jazz Chisholm that's on the cover of the show this year. So we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I don't hate the pick, but anyways, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll debate it. Yeah, we got to keep you there to the end, Matt.
Yeah, breaking news at the end of the that's how we keep you, right? That's how we keep you involved. So just wait another hour and a half and we'll get there.
We're not just pretty faces here, guys.
Not just a hat rack, my friend.
Yeah, right. Right, just a hat rack.
All right. We're going to get to Milwaukee Brewers here. Catcher, Jonathan LaCroix. First base, Cecil Cooper. Second base, Fernando Vina. That was a name I hadn't heard in a while.
I loved Fernando Vina.
Yeah.
Was it he who Albert Bell like completely annihilated with the forearm?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh Jesus, that was so
great. Shortstop is Robin Yount. I could have put him in center too, but I didn't.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah.
Paul Molitor is my third baseman. Ryan Braun in left. Gorman Thomas in center. He's an older guy. Right field, I went against the popular pick of Christian Yelich, and I went Jeremy Burnitz in right field.
Oh man, Burnitz, he was the guy there for a while. I enjoyed.
Yeah, he was absolutely
his massive all or nothing swing and that Titanic home runs he'd hit to right field.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the DH Prince Fielder, starting pitcher, I went with Ben Sheets. So I mean, he did it. I mean, not a long time, but he was really dominant in that stretch when he was with the Brewers.
Yeah, he was so good.
And then relief pitcher is Raleigh Fingers. So I mean, really, no debate there.
No.
All right, your Pittsburgh Pirates that you did, Harrison.
My Pittsburgh Pirates. So I had the same struggle as you. There's a lot of guys from like the way past that were good. I mixed a couple of them in, but some of them I just could not make a good case for. So behind the plate, I took Jason Kendall. And I want to say it was Ken mentioned Manny Sanguillen. And, Sanguillen was there for 12 years. His numbers were almost identical to Kendall's. Kendall was only there for 9. Kendall was considered one of the best catchers in baseball. The time he was there, he was the face of the franchise. Sanguillen won 2 World Series. He was kind of just another guy on the team. Not to downplay what he did, but I took Kendall because, like, at least when I think of the Pirates, he's one of the guys that immediately comes to mind. Manny Sanguillen is not somebody that I would have thought of until I was started to research the team.
Yeah. The only thought I have every time I hear Jason Kendall's name is when he broke his ankle on first base.
Oh, that was awful.
Gruesome injury. Was so nasty.
That was so nasty.
Every time his name comes up, I'm like, it just pops into my head. It's like,
yeah. But and Kendall was the catcher that did it all. He hit for power, he hit for average, he stole bases.
Yep.
He was good defensively, like he did it all, and not many catchers can say they did.
No, it was very good.
At first base, I took Willie Stargell. Many people consider him to be an outfielder, but he actually split his career between the two, so I put him at first. Second base, Bill Mazeroski. Third base, Pie Traynor, mixing in some of the old guard. Shortstop, Honus Wagner. That's a no-brainer. Left field, Barry Bonds. There's some debate, should Kiner or Bonds be in left field? Neither one of them was considered great defensively, so you can put Kiner in left and Bonds at DH, doesn't matter. Center field, Andrew McCutchen, who's now going back to Pittsburgh to close out his career. Again, another guy who was the face of the franchise for a while. This guy in right, never heard of him before, Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
Starting pitcher. This was hard. There's not really a lot of great starting pitching in the Pirates' history. I took Wilbur Cooper. He leads the organization in career wins, also threw a bunch of no-hitters, and he was with them in the 20s. I mean, considered one of the best pitchers of that era. But the Pirates don't have a lot of really dominant pitching.
Yeah.
And if they did, they weren't there very long.
Right.
Relief pitcher, Kent Tekove, who leads pretty much all relief stats for the organization. And then Kiner at DH, but he could be in left field either way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Dave Parker was also another name mentioned, but I mean, are you going to take Barry Bonds off the list for Dave Parker?
I mean, again, Dave Parker, if there was a bench for this, Dave Parker's probably on the bench. But he's not going to take any of those 4 guys out of the lineup. He just won't.
Yeah. It was funny because when Ken mentioned Manny Sanguillen, I just replied with "God bless you."
Yeah. And it's, literally, Kendall's 1 and Sanguillen's 2. Like those.
Yeah.
Sanguillen had really good numbers. He was a high average hitter with, with hit for a little bit of power, but Kendall's numbers were the same or better in all categories, and he had 3 less years to do it. So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll move on to the Chicago Cubs, where I had Randy Hundley behind the plate. I got some flack for this one. This is personal bias, but I have Mark Grace at first.
I love Gracie.
When I came home every day from school, the Cubs were on because they didn't have lights yet. Yes, that's how old I am. Mark
wasn't
Grace,
that long ago, though, man.
No, it was
really wasn't.
It was mid 90s. They didn't have the lights until like 96 or 97.
They were the last team to have lights.
Yep. And I just watched Mark Grace play every single day. So, I mean, I get the Anthony Rizzo pick. Morgan is our patented Cub fan, and Rizzo got him that world championship, and deservedly so. Rizzo could go there. Absolutely. He led that team. So did Chris Bryant. I completely get it, but I ended up going with Mark Grace there.
But Mark Grace was such a fan favorite. He was like Joey Votto is. Like he was always talking. Everybody in baseball loved the guy. Fans loved him everywhere he went. Like it's hard to pick a guy better than him.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Sandberg at second, no brainer. Ernie Banks at short, no brainer. Ron Santo at third, no brainer.
Yep.
Billy Williams in left, no brainer. Hack Wilson in center, no brainer.
I mean, he hit a little bit from what I remember.
Yeah, just a little bit. Did I say my right fielder already?
No, you stopped at center.
Sammy Sosa. I mean, he had
not a Hall of Famer, but that's fine.
I mean, goodness gracious. DH Andre Dawson, Andre the Hawk.
That's the second team Andre Dawson's been on now.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting pitcher is Fergie Jenkins, and then relief pitcher Lee Smith. Yeah, and like I said, our Morgan was our patented Cubs fan. Just had that one disagreement, but he enjoyed my lineup, so I was like, all right, I'll take it. Only one disagreement this time. And then our last team to round it out here was the Cardinals. I got flack for this one, and
you stepped in this one, everybody.
I did bad. This one was completely on me. But I'll just read it first. Here we go. Catcher Yadier Molina, obviously. First base Albert Pujols. Second base Hornsby. Shortstop Ozzie Smith. Third base was Ken Boyer. Left field Lou Brock. Talk about your patented leadoff hitter. I mean, that guy was wheels.
Yep.
Center field, I went with Jim Edmonds. Right field.
Edmonds.
Yep. Everybody does. The guy's a defensive highlight reel. It's disgusting.
He was just so fun to watch. You never knew what the hell would happen night to night.
Right. Right field, Stan the Man Musial. And here's where I get the flack. I put Keith Hernandez as my DH, and I did not put Mark McGwire. When I posted this on the Facebook page, I immediately tried to take it back, but you guys jumped down my throat way too fast. I couldn't.
It blew up fast.
Oh my goodness! They're just like, "Where's Mark McGwire?" I thought you guys were holding him out for this lineup,
and we were. We absolutely were.
Yeah, I literally dropped the ball on that one. That's my bad. Mark McGwire definitely should be the DH. It's not even up for debate, really.
No. McGwire all the way.
Yeah. Starting pitcher Bob Gibson, and then relief pitcher Bruce Sutter. Now, this was I found really interesting. Is Lee Smith and Bruce Sutter could legit be the best relief pitcher on opposite teams.
Yep.
As well. Lee Smith could be the best relief pitcher for the Cardinals, and the Cubs, and Bruce Sutter could be for the Cubs and the Cardinals. So
yeah,
like,
that blew my mind when you said that, and I looked it up.
yeah, like they just pretty much like traded spots halfway through their careers. Like really cool.
Yeah, and they were equally nasty.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, I mean those were my picks for the NL Central there. So
Yeah, good ones.
yeah, so we'll finish out with the NL West next week. That will conclude our all-time lineups, and then I'm sure we'll get to something else. I don't know. We'll come up with something. But those were fun to get the feedback from you guys to, tell us how wrong we were.
Yeah, there's nothing I love more than putting a lineup up and getting roasted for it.
Right? I mean, it is cool though, because like we do have people that follow us from different generations, so it's like really cool to see how they view baseball versus how we view it. Like it is interesting.
It is, and it's amazing. It's amazing how baseball changes generation to generation, how the game has evolved, how the players have changed, and how in so many cases there's so many players that we never got to see play that we're going off of old highlights of, when there are any. I mean, these guys have played like pre-1950. There's nothing for most of them. We'll never see what they played like. So it is kind of cool to have the conversation.
I mean, but even then, like we keep bringing Brooks Robinson up. Like everyone said, like if you watch this guy, he was easily the best defender you ever watched. But like it's really hard to find good clips of him playing defense just because TV and cameras weren't, the quality they are now. So I don't know. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so keep commenting. You guys can roast us on the NL West here because I mean there's a lot of history coming out of those coming up too. So
yeah, you've got teams with tons of history and teams with like none. So this will be fun.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks. I might just put their opening day roster from last year out there and call it a day.
Yeah, take the World Series team and call it good. Like that's it. Yeah. That's the best they're ever going to be.
The Rockies will be good, I think, even though they're fairly young. They have some good players on there. But Dodgers and Giants, that's going to be
a lot of history, man.
Yep. All right. Rounding third question, we put out the Hall of Fame class of 2024 was announced. So after Roland got in, they announced the 2024 class for next year. And here are the names that are eligible for the Hall of Fame next year: Jose Batista, Adrian Beltre, Bartolo Colon, Adrian Gonzalez, Matt Holliday, Jim Johnson, Victor Martinez, Joe Mauer, Brandon Phillips, Jose Reyes, James Shields, Chase Utley, David Wright, and Brad Ziegler. Not a lot to choose from. I think there's one first ballot Hall of Famer on this list. Everybody else is going to get pushed out.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think Beltre gets in. His case is, I think, about as open and closed as it possibly could. The guy's got more than 3,000 hits, almost 500 home runs. He played a little bit of defense in his day, and was just a generally well respected and very well liked guy around baseball. So I don't think he's going to have an issue getting in. And if you watch some of his videos, he was entertaining as hell on the field.
Yeah, those videos with him and Andrus and
all
those guys. And I think I brought it up a couple weeks ago, but when Felix Hernandez buckled him at the plate, and Hernandez pretty much just laughed at him all the way back to the dugout.
That was so good. I mean, the guy, he was out there just having a good time and made it fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. The guys that I think have an outside shot but are going to get pushed, in my eyes, I think are Bartolo Colon, just because he did it for 21 seasons. Joe Mauer. I think those are my two that have a semi-legit shot, if that's a phrase. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Beltre gets in. I really hope Helton gets in too next year, so that one's over.
I agree.
And other than that, I think you can make a case for Mauer. You can make a case for Chase Utley. Ish.
Yeah.
Bartolo Colon, because he did it so long after that. I just don't see anybody. And the one guy on that ballot that I know is not going to get any consideration, and it's sad, and we talked about it before the show, Nick, is David Wright. David Wright's on the ballot. His numbers are not even close because of all the time he missed with injuries. But you talk about a guy that was an ambassador to the game and a massive fan favorite. I mean, David Wright was that guy. He was the future of baseball when he came up, and then the injuries just derailed it. And it's a shame to see his final numbers, but he won't get. I think he'll get votes just because people are going to want to like not let him fall off the ballot right away, but he won't make a real case. What I found most interesting when I dove into this, Adrian Beltre played 2,900 games. Chase Utley played 1,937 games. Joe Mauer only played 1,858 games. I mean, the games played, Joe Mauer's got the third fewest, not counting pitchers. Second fewest of anybody on the ballot.
It's
And yet,
interesting.
he's got a really compelling case for the numbers he put up, and he was definitely one of the best catchers of his time. But, again, did not play nearly as many games as some of the guys around him that are on the ballot.
But it seemed like he did.
I know.
Like Joe Mauer's presence seemed like he played for a lot longer than he did. It was just like it was Minnesota Twins. You immediately thought Johan Santana, Justin Morneau, Joe Mauer. Like those were the three during that stretch where you're just like, all right, I'm never going to get this guy out. He's like a 350 hitter as a catcher, which was unheard of.
Yeah, career average of 306. I mean, he had that one year in 2009 where he hit 365, won the MVP that year. But 15 seasons. His first season in 2004, he only played 35 games. He had only come up for a quick little sniff of the major leagues. And then in 2011, he played 82. But he consistently played 120, 130 games a year, which I think for a catcher's about average. But it's when you see the totals roll up, it's actually kind of surprising that he felt like he was there for forever, but he really wasn't. He wasn't there as long as it feels like he was.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other names on this list that blow me away.
There's a lot of names that should not be on this list at all. Like I don't know what it takes to qualify anymore, but I mean, no offense, but Adrian Gonzalez, why are you on this list?
Yeah. He was a good above average Major League Baseball player, not a Hall of Famer.
Right.
This Jose Reyes, love the guy. He was so flashy. He was so good and consistent for a long time, but not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Victor Martinez, James Shields. It's like, who?
Yeah. I mean, Brandon Phillips too. Brandon Phillips, like when you thought of Cincinnati Reds, it was Brandon Phillips up the middle, but his numbers aren't Hall of Fame numbers either.
No, not even close.
So yeah, I think it's Beltre, no doubt. I mean, 3,000 hits, you're automatically in, pretty much, right? I mean, that's got to be the standard at this point.
You can just punch your ticket there.
Yeah.
And then what's really interesting, just for the hell of it, to look way down the road, in 2025, who is the big headliner on that Hall of Fame ballot?
Ichiro.
That's going to be fun because those guys, that guy's numbers are insane. And then you got CC Sabathia on that ballot too. That'll be interesting because I think he's got a more than compelling case with 251 wins. And sadly, another guy, much like David Wright, that's going to be on that ballot that's going to get no consideration is Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah. I think Ichiro might be the next unanimous selection.
If he's not, the writers need to get their heads checked.
Yeah, I think Ichiro's our next unanimous. I mean, it shouldn't even be like a second thought.
That when that guy was in Seattle, he did everything but cook the hot dogs. The guy did everything for that organization.
Yeah, I think he even pitched a couple times. So I mean,
he did. The guy played Gold Glove defense, stupid high average, hit home runs when you needed him to, ran the bases like a son of a bitch, and that whole team revolved around him.
4,000 career hits between Japan and here. I mean, there's just you can't not, and it's the Baseball Hall of Fame, not the MLB Hall of Fame, so they can bring his Japanese numbers into the discussion for his induction into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, yeah, he's got to be unanimous, and if he's not, you're right. Like, we got to change the process somehow.
Should get their heads checked.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, the list isn't very compelling other than Beltre, but I think the bubble guys, we kind of talked about it before the show, and a little bit was Cologne and Mauer we felt would get pushed at least. They'd get enough of the vote to get pushed. But I don't know. We'll see, because who knows with the freaking Hall of Fame votes. We never know how those are going to go.
Well, and what's interesting too is this year, I think for the first time in a long time, you actually had the you had the writers beginning to openly debate, do you believe in a small Hall of Fame or a large Hall of Fame? Like, should more
Yeah.
people get in? Should less people get in? And you've got very different perspectives from these writers. You've got some of them that are never going to vote for more than 1 or 2 players. They just won't. They believe in a small Hall of Fame.
Right.
They don't care what the case is. They just won't vote for more than 1 or 2 guys.
Right.
And then there's other writers that showed their ballots and they voted for practically everybody.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense that Torrey Hunter gets 7% of the vote.
Yeah, but he won't be on the next ballot, right? Don't you have to have a minimum percent in order to stay
Yeah, I forget
on?
what it is, but you got Torrey Hunter gets 7% of the vote. You get K-Rod got 10, Burley got 10, Jimmy Rollins got 12, Abreu got 15, Pettit got 17, Omar Vizquel got 19. Like, so these amazingly small vote totals for some of these players. That how is it that like 2 people thought he was a Hall of Famer, but nobody else did?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, I think with Helton getting 72% this year, he'll get in next year with Beltre, and then whoever the Veterans Committee, probably some commissioner or some old owner will come in at some point here. But yeah, we will see. So just McGriff and Roland this summer in July. So I don't know. I think,
considering we were afraid there'd be nobody, it's nice to see somebody go in.
I agree, but if you're on the small hall side, those 2 aren't Hall of Famers.
No,
which is crazy to think about, but they're not. But
yeah, I mean, those neither one of them was like in my mind, neither one of them was a slam dunk, like obvious choice.
Right.
I definitely felt like Roland belonged. McGriff, I still feel like is a question mark.
I mean, he almost had 500 home runs, which is also an automatic ticket punch, unless you're on roids.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if they did go small hall, those 2 guys wouldn't be in for sure.
Nope.
But all right, we are going to head home. We got a quick one tonight. The Blue Jays are moving their fence in, and they're renovating the Rogers Center for, what was it, $300 million? They might as well just tear it down and build a new park.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, it's a multi-year $300 million renovation, and basically what they're doing, down the lines, they're not changing how far it is. They're just moving. They're making the wall a couple of feet taller. To left and right center, they're bringing left center in. It looks like 7 feet, moving the wall up 1 foot. Right center, they're bringing in 16 feet, moving the wall up 4 feet. And then in the true power alleys, they're going from 383 to 381 in left, 383 to 372 in right, and moving the wall up just a foot or 2. So they're trying to change up right field a little bit, because what they're finding is that the ball does not carry to right field the same as it does to left. And they're also making some changes on that side of the ballpark to accommodate that, to try to add some more action and entertainment for the fans and update the bullpen a little bit and things like that. So they don't expect it to be a major change to how they play, but they do think it'll be a nice update to move things around a little bit and try to level it off.
I saw an argument this week that was like, well, no wonder these guys are putting up 50 plus homers and 60 plus homers. These ballparks are small. Okay, like compared to the ballparks back in the day. Okay, yeah, some of them were massive. Don't get me wrong.
They were
but you also had bandboxes as well. You had tiny fields. Shibe Park is really small. If you look at the dimensions are not very big. Polo Grounds was 270 feet down the lines, and then it got to like 480
and a million in center.
Right. But if you you get out in front of a pitch and yank it, it's a home run. Like, I mean, listen, I don't put any stock into the sides of the fields or anything like that. Like, they are what they are, and that's what makes baseball unique. Is that you look at football, you look at basketball, you look at hockey. They all play on the same exact surface, no matter where they go in the country, right? The dimensions don't change. Baseball does, and that's what makes it awesome. It's just another part that I love about the game, to bring variety. Like, some parks you have to hit it 500 feet to get it out, Comerica Park. But, but then in Fenway, you can hit a 312-foot wall scraper that barely gets down the right field line. Like, that's just what it is,
Yep.
So
Well,
I think
and that's where home field advantage makes a big difference. You know,
right.
you build a team to your surface, your stadium, your layout, and that serves you well or doesn't. But and every ballpark plays differently. Every ballpark's geared towards different outcome, and maybe you play the game a little differently when you're at certain places. But yeah, the fields of old were all over the place. You had little league fields, and then you had these like hitting in Yellowstone for the other places.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but back in the day, how many there were inside the park home runs like crazy because you hit a ball over the center fielder's head and it rolled 500 feet away. Nobody's nobody's getting to it and throwing the guy out.
Well, I ain't getting all the way to home plate either. Let's just be
Yeah,
honest
well,
there. I might be able to get to second, but
yeah, but there
um,
were tons of That's why there were so many more triples hit back in the day because you had walls that were further back. So if it got past an outfield, it rolled a while.
right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Blue Jays moving their stuff in the Rogers Center doesn't really do much because they're just making it up for it with the wall height. So it's not really changing the play of their ballpark that much. But it was just more of like the
Yep.
renovations that we'll see what they do different there. But
Yeah, it won't change. It won't change the play much. They're gonna gain some pop fly home runs and lose some line drives. You may play the outfield just a little bit different, but ultimately that the dimension changes are small. These are not big changes like the Orioles made in left or like they're
right.
making in Comerica. These are some minor tweaks just to adjust what they think is an imbalance.
Yep, absolutely. Two more things that I have. The Braves extend Brian Snitker through the 2025 season. I mean, of course they would. They extended everybody else in that roster. You might as well extend the manager as well. And Snitker deserves it. The Braves contend every year with him, at the helm. So I have no issue with this. The Braves are going to be there year after year after year for a while. And they play for him. They love him there. So great move by the Braves.
Yeah, I agree. I think that signing him to me was a no-brainer. There was some concern that maybe they couldn't, because nobody really knows what he's going to do in terms of like his career path, how much longer he wants to manage. But I think having him there long term is going to be or longer term is good because that team is really gelled and where they got so many players that are coming back and staying together. It's going to be helpful to have them keep the whole thing together.
Yeah. The Braves, I've said this a couple of weeks ago, is it's going to be interesting because the Braves could either look very, very, very good by locking these guys up, or they could look really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
Because if they don't perform and then they're stuck with these guys for another 5 years, now they're handcuffed, right? Now they're dealing everybody away, trying to rebuild. So it will be interesting to see what happens with the Braves in the next 4 or 5 years here. But I mean, I think they've signed the right pieces and they're gonna contend in an NL East that is very, very competitive. They might have leapfrogged the AL East in the most competitive division in baseball, I think.
Yeah.
At this point, with the Red Sox not being anything, who knows what the Orioles are? The Blue Jays are the Blue Jays. I mean, I don't have any faith in them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got Mets, you got Phillies, and you got the Braves, and then who knows how the Marlins are going to do this year. I mean, they're not going to be in the top 3. Don't get me wrong, but I think the NL East is the best division, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree there. It's hard to argue. You've got some teams that are loaded, but you don't have a division that's loaded like that division is right now. That's as we said it last year. Getting through the NL East was going to be a gauntlet. There's not a lot of nights off in that division.
Nope, except for maybe the Nationals at this point. But
yeah, but otherwise, I mean, you're going to have. I mean, but even then, like that team didn't win a lot, but they played hard and kept games close.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last thing I have is, as you can see behind Mr. Harrison Smith here, we got Jazz Chisholm on the cover of MLB The Show 23. How do we like that selection?
So first of all, I hate the art. I hate the cover art. I think it looks stupid. But I don't hate the Jazz Chisholm pick, but there are other young players I would have chosen first. And to me, I think J-Rod is the obvious choice here. Like if MLB wants to put a young player forward, Jazz Chisholm isn't the one he's not like the first one that comes to mind because he's had some incidents and some signs of immaturity and he's done some really stupid stuff over the last few seasons. The guy is crazy talented, but I don't know that he's the young player I would have picked first.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would have gone Julio Rodriguez definitely. I mean, the dude just won Rookie of the Year and the 25 and 25 stolen bases, home runs, like first rookie to do that in forever or maybe ever. I think.
Yeah.
There's just some other names that I would have picked. I would have even gone with Jose Ramirez. I mean, he deserves it. That guy is steady all the time.
I mean,
Superstar in Cleveland.
Aaron Judge, Juan Soto,
Well, Aaron Judge was on it 2 years ago.
Oh, that's right. He
3
was 2 years ago. That's right.
18, I think he was on it.
That's right. After that monster, that's after that monster rookie season, right?
Yep. So Aaron Judge has already been on it. Shohei was on it last year.
Yep.
And then Griffey was on it the year before that. So I mean, yeah, there's worse people you could put on other than Jazz Chisholm, but
I don't hate the pick. I would have liked to have seen somebody else.
It's interesting. Mike Trout has never been on the cover either.
And apparently he doesn't want to be. He's been asked many times and he continues to turn it down.
Well, and that's the problem with
he is. Well, and he is surprisingly disinterested in endorsement type stuff. That's why I don't see him anywhere. He doesn't want to do it.
Cool. I'll just sit back and make my $400 million a year and not do anything about it.
And yeah, and that's a lot of that's his personality. He's an understated, quiet guy. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight as much. I mean, the dude was at an Eagles game in a hoodie trying to like blend in.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind. But he wasn't like sitting up in a luxury box with anybody special. He was just trying to like blend into the place.
Yeah, you're not gonna blend in, dude. You're a freak athlete and you're Mike Trout. Like
right.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, he's just a very, very understated guy.
Yeah, that's like me trying to blend in with 59 women at school. It's not going to happen. I stand out. Like it just naturally happens. The other names considered was Yordan Alvarez. Also would have been a
good one
pick. But yeah, I mean, Jazz Chisholm's nice, but I mean Justin Verlander. I mean, give that man some props.
Yeah,
Verlander just won a Cy Young Award. He's never been on the cover. Have we had a pitcher on the cover? I don't think we have, other than Shohei. I don't call that I don't. Yeah. So I mean,
you don't seem to get a lot of pitchers. It's not, the NFL. It's they love to put quarterbacks on everything. Right. MLB loves to put position players on everything.
Yeah, but I mean, Jazz Chisholm's got the young person vibe, right? He's bringing the swag to baseball. So I guess it's the sexy pick, but
yeah. And I think the cover art is fitting for him. It's colorful, it's bright, it's vibrant. That's everything that he is. I just think he's also a little bit immature and obnoxious. And I don't know that he's necessarily the guy you want to push out in front of everybody right now. Although at the same time, I'm sure that the younger crowd loves him because he's raw and he's entertaining and he's fun and but I just, I don't know that he's the guy that I would want as the model, but so be it. It was Fernando Tatis Jr. last year, right? And how'd that work out?
It's like the curse of the Madden cover for sure. Maybe that's what they're trying to do to the poor kid. Let's get him cursed.
Maybe
get him out. Wander Franco's name was brought up. He was hurt too much last year.
Yeah,
Nick Fanning put it out. We were talking about him, but he got hurt and just didn't put up a decent year. And then O'Neal Cruz also.
I love O'Neal Cruz.
I think he has
Adley Rutschman. Where's Adley Rutschman in this?
Right. I mean, you're in the basement with the Orioles. I don't know if the Orioles is a sexy pick to put on the cover, although neither is Miami. But
I was just gonna say, I mean, Miami's terrible. So
yeah, I mean,
Sandy Alcantara. If you want to go to Miami,
right,
it's fun.
Yeah, interesting pick there, but either way, it doesn't matter who's on the cover. I'm still going to buy it when it comes out. So
yeah, I can honestly say I have not bought MLB The Show in years. I would love to buy it again, but
God, it's literally all I do. It's the only thing I play now is just baseball. I'm still playing 22, so it's just so much to do in the game. It's awesome.
Yeah,
like they have like the real life moments. So like whatever happened in the past week, you get to replay them and earn rewards for it. Like it's pretty cool. They do a great job with that.
Yeah,
And then they
sick.
release legends and like programs where you like play parts of their career and try to unlock them and then put them on your Diamond Dynasty team. Like they do a great job for
Yeah.
the show. And
Yeah, no, it's cool.
being such a baseball nerd, dude, oh my god, you can just collect cards. That's really all you can do. Just collect players. It's the best. I love it.
I wish they bring it to PC. It would be, I don't have a PS4 or PS5, and
Yeah.
don't really want to go get one just for that game. But I wish they bring it to PC.
Right.
Maybe then you could see Matt start streaming it.
Yeah, right. They did just cross-platform it, so they never had it for Xbox. The reason I bought PlayStation was because of MLB The Show. That was the only platform it was on, and Xbox had 2K. So,
oh man, that game was so bad. I remember that game.
Yeah. So when they had the show, I went straight to PlayStation, and I've been to PlayStation since. But now that it's cross-platform, you can get it for Xbox now too. But
they got it on Switch. Maybe I'll get it and steal one of my kids' Switches.
Yep, there you go. Perfect. But yeah, that's all I have for tonight. Do you have anything?
I got just three quick items that I thought were interesting.
Bring it.
First one, so Spencer Strider of the Braves changed his number from 65 to 99 in honor of Rick Wild Thing Vaughn. If this is not like the most bizarre flex by this guy who's clearly like a maniac, I love it. I mean, literally, he's going to wear 99 in honor of Rick Wild Thing Vaughn, which is so on brand with Strider there, who's got the crazy mustache and wild behavior.
Right.
So I found that cool. The Seattle Mariners, so Major League limits you to 4 jerseys and 1 City Connect jersey. So you only have 5 total uniforms. The Mariners technically have 6. So they've had to get rid of their road gray uniform. So no more of the road gray uniforms.
Thank
with
God.
the blue lettering and the teal wrap. The gray unis are gone.
So they kept the teal, which is smart. You have to keep the teal.
Yeah, because they've got the home white, the home throwback cream color. They've got the Northwest green alternate, the teal, and then the alternate navy blue. They're going to keep all those, kill the road gray, and they're also going to get rid of their spring training powder blue because they're finding that nobody actually liked those anyways.
That's interesting that they've limited teams to the amount of jerseys they can have.
Yep, it's because they had some teams that got kind of out of control with it. You've got the Yankees that only have, basically one.
Pinstripes,
right? They got one. And then you got all these other teams that have, with City Connect, they've been trying to like branch out and try different things, and they've got all these different alternate jerseys. And the Mariners kind of took it too far, and MLB is like, this is crazy. We can't keep track of you in so many uniforms. So they've killed off so the traditional road gray uniform is gone.
Bye. Good riddance.
And then the last headline, and this is going to be something we'll want to watch. So Rockies owner Dick Monfort has actually come out publicly questioning MLB allowing the spending this season to have happened. He's the first owner to publicly make comments. There's been lots of discussion around baseball that the owners are frustrated with what just happened with Cohen and with the Padres and some of the stuff that's happened this offseason with these teams going nuts. Dick Monfort's the first guy to come out and say, this is a problem. This is crazy. You're going to have half of this league basically say, I'm out. I can't compete anymore. This is going to be a conversation that continues to come around. They had talked about putting in a Cohen rule during the CBA, which would have capped the spending. So not like punish you, but like put a cap. You just can't spend more than that, period.
Right.
They didn't do it. And now a lot of the owners are saying, well, geez, that was a mistake because this guy's proven he's going to spend whatever he wants. This will be something to watch because I do think the owners are going to get louder about this. And I think if you have a situation where the NLCS is the Padres and the Mets, it's going to piss the owners off.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally get it. And the MLB has stepped in before and stopped this from happening. We talked about it a few weeks ago when the Red Sox tried to get Alex Rodriguez from Texas. MLB stepped in and was like, no, you can't go to Boston. I mean, ultimately he goes to New York, which is stupid anyways, but they stepped in for there. And then they also stepped in for Mark Teixeira because Mark Teixeira was going to come to Boston for a big payday. And the MLB goes like, nope, too much money. And then he signs in New York again. Cohen spending money is I mean, most of it's his own money, for crying out loud.
The
But
dude's loaded. They
it
knew
is
it when he
crazy.
bought the team.
Yeah, and the owner saw this coming. I think you mentioned
Yep.
that a few weeks ago. And
Yeah, I mean they literally talked about adding a specific Cohen rule into the CBA that put a
yeah,
hard cap on spending. And Monfort's got some interesting points, and it's worth looking into. His whole thing is this creates a bigger imbalance. This makes it really hard for us. The Padres are
yeah,
in our division. We don't have the kind of money to spend that these guys have. But our fans expect it, and now our fans are mad at us for doing something we can't do.
right.
He said it's putting us in a really difficult position as a smaller market team to meet the new expectation that's been set.
And if MLB wants to expand, like they've been talking about, the Nashville Stars is a team that keeps coming up, and then they obviously have to bring in another expansion team. I don't know how far away this is, but they need to get that ironed out before they bring in 2 expansion teams and then they immediately fail because they can't get anybody there. Right? I mean,
Right.
if you're starting up an organization, you usually aren't the Las Vegas Golden Knights and win the first year that you're an expansion team. That rarely happens. Like
Right.
you have to be established, and then after a few years, you can start spending, bringing in the big free agents. But I mean, you got to fix it. Like we had mentioned during the entire lockout, about the same time last year, was you got to put in a salary cap floor, and you got to put a salary cap ceiling. So the team has to spend $100 million, but they can't spend more than $250 million. Those are just ballpark numbers. Pardon the pun. But like somewhere in between there, and not below and not above.
Yeah.
But I mean, Cohen's at the point where it's like, yeah, luxury tax, and you can penalize me all you want. I'm still going to pay it. So like, I think that the penalty has to be steeper. If you want to put that in, it has to be something that kicks him below the belt. You know what I mean? To make him not want to spend above that. And taking away like 2 years draft picks, Cohen's not going to care. If it's going to make me win, I'll spend $500 million next offseason.
Yeah. And to give everybody an idea, so the New York Mets revenue in 2021, because of course that was the last, I think, full year they've reported on, because 22 just ended. In 2021, the New York Mets total revenue was $153 million. He just went out and committed to a payroll of $280 million next year. He's going to be funding $130 million of that payroll out of his own pocket. Not to mention all the operating costs of the organization, all the salaries, the staff, the scouts. He's probably putting $200 million of personal money into the bank account to fund the Mets next year. There's not a lot of owners that can step in and drop that kind of cash into the organization to keep it running. The Colorado Rockies, they don't make more than $100 million a year in revenue. They don't have an owner that's going to drop another 150 or 200 million bucks into the till to run a payroll up over 200 million. So, this is, everybody knew when Cohen bought the team, this was going to cause a problem eventually. Nobody thought it would be in his second year.
Well, and it's going to happen in the third year when he pays Shohei Ohtani $500 million to come to the Mets. I mean, Shohei's going to the Mets. There's no way that Cohen's not going to pay for him.
That of the Dodgers. The Dodgers have made it very clear they're going to throw everything at him too. So, so again, like Shohei Ohtani, free agent. How many markets can afford him? 3. That's it.
Yeah, maybe.
Like if you're and I'll just pick, if you're a Cincinnati Reds fan, there's no elite free agents going there anytime soon.
Nope.
And that's what Monfort's saying. As a Rockies fan right now, our fans know that if this is the cost of talent, we're never going to have it.
However, as an organization, you have to know that. Look what the Reds did, right? They had Luis Castillo. They sent him to the Mariners for 4 of their top prospects. Mm-hmm. So the Reds were smart in dealing away with what they had.
Yes.
And building a younger team to hopefully, you get one superstar out of that batch of 4, the trade paid off, right?
Absolutely.
The Rockies could have done that same thing. They traded their ace away to Texas, or did John Gray just sign free agency?
I think he was a free agent signed.
Whatever. The Rockies have had pieces.
Yep.
And they just didn't get the prospect for them.
So it's. And the argument is that Monfort basically said, and we couldn't afford to keep him either. So
fair. That's absolutely fair.
Because he's looking at the Padres, and they're going to run a lineup out there of Bogarts and Tatis and Soto, and like you keep Manny Machado,
right?
and he's looking at his organization going, it literally it's like the Sandlot. They're running out what looks like a minor league team against this team of all-stars, and
Yep.
it's the NBA is the same problem with this super team concept where these guys team up and go together. The NFL's never had that problem because the salary cap is the salary cap. There's no tax. You aren't allowed to spend.
Right.
And I think baseball is going to have a few years of pain here with guys like Cohen going bananas like he is. And I think the owners are going to get pissed. And I think you will see teams go up for sale. I think owners are going to say, I don't want to play by these rules anymore. I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a legit argument, and I think it's a fair argument because which is crazy because baseball does have a lot of parity. We've talked about it last playoff season. It's like, you have a different World Series champion every year. Like the playoffs has expanded, so we saw new teams in the playoffs this year that usually aren't there. So we are seeing parity, but it will be interesting to see if these top market teams are consistently not just in the playoffs, but like you said, second round, World Series. Is it always going to be the Mets and Padres for the next few years? Is it?
Yep.
I don't know how it will play out, but yeah, like we've said all along, there needs to be a floor, there needs to be a ceiling, and you can spend all you want in between those two numbers, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Braves, and they're now at a $231 million payroll for next year, and as they've locked all these guys into these long-term contracts, and $231 million, that's stout.
What is the luxury tax threshold? Is it 240?
Luxury tax threshold is 233.
So they're barely under it, but
they've just
smart.
crept over it. Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it will be interesting. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of new things in play too. So I mean, like we said, we keep bringing up the balanced schedule. Like I'm really intrigued how this is going to pan out. But
yeah, the Mets are going into next year right now sitting at 468.
Oh my God.
And that's $98 million in penalties.
But still, so what? 350 on players alone?
Their active payroll is 349, 330.
Wow.
So you're looking at MLB's first nearly $500 million payroll, fully loaded. So 350 on players, 369 when you roll up all the minor league costs and all that too. So total active payroll of 369.7 million next year, plus $98 million in penalties brings them to 468, 220, 248.
Jesus.
And you look, you've got Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander together making $86.5 million
between two players.
I mean, between Scherzer, Verlander, and Lindor, you're at 86. What is that? 14, 19. You're at $119 million with just those three players.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It's bananas.
That is the nuts.
But it's interesting because this is the first time it's been publicly brought out. It's going to be a story to watch as we get closer to spring training, get into next year. And if the Mets come out and are on pace to set like a wins record, you're going to have owners and GMs screaming foul.
Well, and I think, we brought up Artie Moreno not selling the team last week.
Right.
But look at him already starting to get his ducks in a row. You know what I mean? Like he sees it coming and he's like, all right, like I'm not going to be able to compete with this. So I'm going to sell the Angels because, like I'm going to get feelers out for it now because I'm not going to be able to compete with these guys. So,
no.
And when does the CBA end? It's like 6 years, right? So it's not going to end until 2028.
They got a little ways to go.
Yeah.
So you got the Padres at 245 million, and you've got the Colorado Rockies are as far as they can go at 154 million.
I wouldn't even thought it was that high.
Well, you got Chris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon, who are they're 44 million bucks between the two of them.
Still,
I mean, the Rockies aren't like a horrible team, but I mean, you're not going to go out there and beat the Padres unless you go spend another $100 million to bring in some really big hitters.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So,
all right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week at 8. Please like, subscribe, share. Like I said, we're trying our best to get it out there on the Spotify and Apple. But Apple
It's
makes
coming.
us jump through all these hoops and stuff, so it's great. But just like, subscribe, chat along with us, and we'll see you guys next week at 8 p.m.
See you guys.